Hello to all you vacation rental pioneers out there. My name's Matt Landau, and this is Unlocked, the podcast series that introduces you to the world's leading vacation rental innovators by diving deep into one single key, one specific best practice or technique that opened the door and changed the game. Eric Bay is a connector. He's the kind of guy that every neighborhood would love to have. He shoots straight, he respects opposing viewpoints, and he's willing to get his hands dirty. He's also the president of the Alliance for Neighborhood Prosperity, which, based in New Orleans, is one of the most influential short-term rental advocacy groups in the United States. In this episode, Eric walks us through the big learning point he made in this fight towards a fair and regulated short-term rental ecosystem. Here's me and Eric. Hi.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's a beautiful day.
It's beautiful out. Introduce yourself first and foremost.
Sure. My name is Eric Bay. I am a almost born and bred New Orleanian, been in New Orleans for 30 years. Currently serving as the president of our group, the Alliance for Neighborhood Prosperity.
And where are we sitting right now?
Well, we're sitting in a historic building on Decatur Street in downtown New Orleans on a late Sunday morning, early Sunday afternoon. And when the rest of the world is spending a day of leisure, we don't do that in New Orleans. We're getting ready to second line and Po' Boy Fest and cheer on the Saints this afternoon. Sundays are busy days in New Orleans.
We're living like a local. I'm practically a local.
Practically, you have costumes.
I got an apartment.
You have an apartment. You have sequins and glitter, and a lot of liquor around. So you're pretty much there.
Fit right in. And for those who don't know, Eric, you are first and foremost a vacation rental professional. Your management company here in New Orleans represents how many properties?
We represent 36 vacation rentals, primarily in the downtown area, mostly local property owners who've sought outside professional management.
And New Orleans is an extremely popular tourist destination. And my guess is that the vacation rental sector sees a lot of activity and has for quite some time.
Absolutely. So the practice of home sharing, obviously in New Orleans, has been going on to, I believe, both Iberville and Bienville, two of the streets downtown, more than likely stayed in someone's home when they set sail and landed in New Orleans. The room sharing or home sharing around the French Quarter, around all areas of the city, has been a 300-year-old practice in New Orleans. Moving it up to more modern times in the traditional vacation rental market. The growth of Hollywood South here about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, really opened up the industry and elevated the number of homes that were participating in true vacation rental home sharing. And that was mostly from film production crews coming here for a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months at a time. People would literally leave their homes and go to their second home, or leave their homes and go elsewhere. Or if they had a second home in the family, husband and wife get married, they both had a home, they wanted to keep one, they turned it into a traditional vacation rental.
So this idea of vacation rentals or short-term rentals is not necessarily new at all. But with the rise of some of the larger brands, with the popularity of late, the accessibility, New Orleans short-term rental market became contentious, if you will, among the most contentious in the States.
Absolutely.
And when did that start?
Well, we were, as an industry, and we weren't, I don't even say as an industry, we weren't an industry back then, but as a group of individual property owners practicing home sharing in the vacation rental industry here in New Orleans, we were undisturbed, undisrupted, until the growth of this disruptive technology came into play with the popularity, the mainstream now of online booking platforms, VRBO, HomeAway, Booking.com, Airbnb. Those are now common names, similar to what Uber is now. 6 or 7 years ago, most people, unless they lived in a coastal city, New York or California, didn't know what Uber is, and now Uber is mainstream. Now, VRBO and HomeAway and Airbnb and Booking.com are very mainstream names and accepted and trusted brands with the travelers. Traveler preference is what drove this market. It wasn't owners in their homes. It was the traveler preference. And we've seen that preference skyrocket in the last 5 years.
And when you have, I love the way you describe this as disruptive technology. I had never heard it described that way before I heard you at one of your meetings. When you have a disruptive technology that is meeting a very conventional world of hospitality, there is adversity, there's conflict. Talk to me a little bit about what that conflict looked like for you as a property owner or manager in the early days.
In the early days, and I would even kind of joke and say in 1890, I have family here in New Orleans, and they had a restaurant on St. Louis Street, the 600 block of St. Louis Street. Disruptive technology then was electricity coming to disrupt the butane and propane and natural gas lights that lit some of the storefronts. And you still see some of the gas lanterns here in old New Orleans. Electricity was a disruptive technology to, say, the kerosene industry. They probably fought electricity very hard. Ride sharing was very disruptive to the taxi cab industry. The vacation rental market is disruptive to the hotel industry. So disruptive is really only, I guess it's really only disrupting the old school regime, those who have the monopoly on an industry that is now being transformed. And it's not disruptive for the traveler, and it's not disruptive for the local city governments who are taking advantage of the taxation, both collected taxes and tourist spend taxes. And it's not disruptive to the vacation rental property owners. It's making our lives more comfortable, less disruptive for both guests and owners, slightly more disruptive for those who see the displacement in tourism dollars maybe impacting their future bottom line.
So what did that mean? Was it beginning to threaten the livelihood of your business?
Not of our business at all. If anything, having recognized, trusted brands, those online booking platforms made the industry legitimate, because now travelers had a true sense of security in booking a transaction, not only from a stranger staying in their home, but now a trusted platform to conduct that transaction. Secure transaction, insurance, making sure tax collection was being done. It wasn't so much as the olden days, I don't know if I want to make a purchase online. I don't trust that. Everyone makes purchases online. Most of the retail spending is online now. Now, almost all of the vacation rental travel is done through an online booking platform.
But the disruption to the hoteliers, was their response to that disruption beginning to in some way threaten your livelihood?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And thus grows the face of the opposition. Not necessarily the face, but the spirit and the body. The face comes across in the way of an agent that they utilize to spread their message. And it's fear-based. The industry's recognition that, for example, in New Orleans 3 years ago, we had University of New Orleans conduct an economic impact study of short-term rentals in this city. The data was paid for by this city, by the Hotel Association, by the Convention and Visitor Bureau. Those numbers would come out quarterly and annually in order for them to track, to kind of get a recap of what tax dollars would be coming in from hotel tax, and a budget and forecast going forward for the tourism industry in the city. At that point, we were about 1.1% of the total visitors that came to New Orleans were staying in the other category, and that would be a vacation rental. 3 years later, we conducted the same poll, and UNO came back with those numbers, and it went from 1.1 to about 4.4%.
Let's go take a step back, because you've accomplished a lot in 4 years, but it all started somewhere. So you realize there's this threat of a conventional world of hotels to begin with, who aren't so happy about this economy taking place. What is the first step that you, as a owner or a property manager in New Orleans, do with the folks around you?
Well, I can tell you that our major concern was not the threat of the hotel industry. Our major concern, when I was not among the original 12, but I joined the group afterwards, when the original 12 members got together, 12 individuals got together on a couch and collectively said, hey, we're all entrepreneurs, property owners, home sharers, and we're all working without a regulatory framework. We're operating our home sharing But yet there's a 1950s ordinance on the book that prohibits a rental for a period of less than 30 days in New Orleans. So let's approach city council and see if we can't join together and come up with some fair regulations to make our industry legit, licensed, legal, taxed, regulated, and even an enforcement mechanism. Those concerns that were not so we can keep the hotel industry quiet. Those were concerns because we're locals and we live here and we're concerned about our city. We wanted to make sure that we were playing fairly and collecting transient taxes. We wanted to have the opportunity to assist the city coffers with taxation. We wanted to be licensed and permitted, and we wanted to be regulated so our neighbors would know what was going on in our homes, so that the emergency responders would be able to tell if they approach a home with a license that there may or may not be a vacation rental guest in there. So our concerns were more local, but knowing that the hotel industry was going to want to make sure that we were on a level playing field.
I'd like to take a quick moment to share a little vignette that I keep coming back to. And it's the vacation rental movement like a parade that's coming through town. As independent owners and managers, we can either jump in and join the action, or we can watch it pass by. And as you can hear from this conversation, joining in on the parade means innovating, adopting new technology, and doing things that haven't been done before. This podcast would not be possible without the support of Point Central, a company that epitomizes innovation. Their property automation services like smart locks and smart thermostats allow us to focus on the highest value jobs, in the process delivering a more seamless experience to the people that we work with. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. That's pointcentral.com/VRMB. Thanks to the Point Central team for their leading role in our proud vacation rental parade. Now let's get back to the show. So it was getting together on a couch, for lack of a better visual.
Couple couches.
It was bringing your needs with one common voice to the local council.
Yes.
What was the next big leap?
The next big leap was going from the multiplier, going from 12 people to 120. And people coming out of the woodworks going, wow, there are more people than we knew in the city that are doing this. Let's collectively not only get together as a working group of sharing best practices or sharing housekeeping tips or sharing staff or a resource to, hey, where do you get a plumber on a Sunday afternoon? Or I have guests coming in or family coming in looking for these accommodations. So not only do we work amongst ourselves as a networking and peer group, but we then also realized that collectively, as these numbers grew, we can go from a band sitting on a couch to 120 people in a room who were really illegal operatives into a licensed, legitimate industry. And thus we metamorphosized into a legitimate trade association. Now we are the industry's trade association representing all vacation rental property owners in New Orleans.
And this is an example you're able to then go to the University of New Orleans, was it?
Absolutely.
And commission reports and speak with authority using statistics and using multiple perspectives as opposed to any one person or a small handful of people.
Correct. When I speak or one of our members or one of our board members or advisory council members speak, we speak not just as an individual or just as our group of members, but we speak for the collective industry. The majority of the industry is not even aware that we're advocating for them locally. And without our presence, they wouldn't be able to continue to share their home.
And it's not just you or just the effort from your colleagues. It's also, you have the help of larger vacation rental industry companies, right? Who will support.
Absolutely.
Give a shout out to Phil.
We would like to absolutely commend, because while this is unique to us and this experience is new to us, we also realize that this dynamic growth in this industry is happening in every city in the United States and every municipality in the world. So we could lean on industry experts. Locally, we're the industry expert, but the people that have been doing this and running the companies, Philip Minardi and HomeAway, the Expedia Group, Airbnb. We've met and talked with Booking.com, with even a little bit with TripAdvisor. They know they face these battles in other cities. They've worked with local property owners. They've worked with local governments. They could help share with us best practices, horror stories, both from an operational standpoint as well as from a regulatory landscape or regulatory framework to be presented. So we've made ourselves aware of the regulatory challenges everywhere.
And I've been to a couple of your town hall meetings. Is that what you call them?
Yes.
And it really is remarkable how transparent and honest and unbiased, objective everyone is in trying to come up with a common solution for everyone, both people on the for side of the argument and people that are against it. Based on what you've just described, I want to attempt to summarize what I just learned, and please correct anything that I've missed. Short-term rentals is nothing new to the great destination of New Orleans. In fact, it probably is one of the oldest industries. However, with the rise of some of the larger brands, with the popularity, a certain kind of disruption brings out different kinds of adversaries. And in this particular case, the municipality, the hotel lobby, these were all parts of it. But you also came to the realization that as independent business owners and neighbors, it was your responsibility to step forward and make proactive measures on behalf of yourselves and your communities. And it began with a simple group of 12 individuals sitting on multiple couches, which then brought a common voice to the local council, which then earned you a seat at the table, earned you some respect, which then turned into a critical mass of 120 people, which sort of began speaking on behalf of everybody with authority and has more or less formalized an otherwise informal and sort of underground industry up until that moment. Correct? Accurate summary?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you say to someone who is in another destination, who is either dealing with a regulation battle now or hasn't even had to deal with it just yet and is sitting comfortably operating in a gray zone?
This too will change. Whether you faced the challenges in the past or you haven't faced them yet, this is going to touch every city in the United States where there are vacation rentals. If you're not at the table, you're going to be eaten for lunch. Those words came from one of the city council members during our first rounds of meeting, who thanked us for coming to them and starting the conversation respectfully, politely, humbly. At that point, we were illegal. We were looking to become legal. We had zero leverage whatsoever. We were coming to them, asking them to help solve a problem that they didn't even know exist. It exists in most cities now, and if you're not aware of it in your city, it's coming. The easiest thing to do is find your peers, find your group, get together. One person cannot do it because you will be outvoiced and outmanned. But if you come, or outwomaned, outnumbered, find some owners, find the number one rated Airbnb host in your location, find multiple property owners on VRBO. Go online. And if you don't know the people operating in your community, get to know them. Because ultimately, the power of a few collectively are a lot better than one. We had a tendency to hide in the shadows because there was no regulatory framework. So we were afraid to even tell our neighbors, tell our friends, tell anyone what we were doing because technically it was a zoning violation. So it was illegal. And in areas that don't have regulations, yes, it is illegal. Well, take that first step. And it doesn't have to be Boston Tea Party-ish. It doesn't need to be demanding and rude, and doesn't have to be the way people vocalize and oppose and speak up now. We were humble, polite, took the high road at all attacks and defense. We presented fact-based, data-driven evidence, not scare tactics, not anecdotal horror stories, not one-offs. Everybody has a bad neighbor, whether they're a renter or an owner. There's always one on the block. That's a problem. There are mechanisms in place to deal with a bad neighbor or noise or trash. Those are just municipal regulations that are on the books. collectively see the impact that this industry is having in your neck of the woods, but be very cognizant that what we think is positive impacts, that there are real life people out there that are affected and see negative impacts as well. And you have to be aware and understanding that there are some negative impacts.
I will wrap this up with one of my favorite quotes by Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of concerned and thoughtful citizens can change the world. In fact, they are the only ones who ever have. Thank you for your leadership in the industry, and thanks for coming to my apartment for a breakfast interview.
Looking forward to the fun day in New Orleans.
Po' Boy Fest?
Absolutely, and some second line.
And to close, just a quick reminder of who made this episode possible. It's Point Central, the property automation experts of our industry. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And when you use that page, you'll become eligible for free HVAC analytics, which tells managers when the HVAC starts to misbehave before our guests get upset. This also makes property owners happy by taking care of the problem before it becomes too expensive. And if you're feeling cheerful, please also consider writing us a quick review in your podcast app. We read every single one of them, and we pass them along to our esteemed guests. This industry is growing up quickly, my friends. This industry is unlocked.